If you created usual Docker with just using your node base image and your code, you will end up with having a 1.5 GB Docker, right? But since we use this technique, we got only 381 MB as a size to the Docker. Hello everyone, you guys are awesome. Now I can see most of you are engaging with my content. I can see you click on the like button, I can see you put comments, and I can see you subscribing. Also, I hope you're clicking on that bell icon as well. It's really great because that is the feedback I'm getting for my content. So when I see that, it's encouraging me to do more and more. So if you're learning something from these videos, please be kind enough to click on that thumbs up button and add a comment if you like, because that give me really encouragement, as well as there's nothing cost for you, right? It doesn't cost anything. So I hope you will do that. Today we are going to talk about a topic which we didn't discuss before, right? So I'm going to demonstrate this using NestJS, but this is exactly same for the NodeJS as well, right? So you can, if even you're working on NodeJS project, you can use exactly this as it is without any change, right? So I know most of you aware and know how to create a Docker from a Node.js project, and if you Google that, you can find tons of articles. If you come to YouTube, you can find the YouTube videos as well. Also, if you can apply that to the NestJS as well. But here, what the difference is, we are going to discuss how we can create a Docker in the enterprise level, the production ready Docker using NestJS or the on top of the NestJS or a Node.js project, right? So this video is kind of a first video. Then the second video, I will explain you how to do the vulnerability checks and kind of adding more restriction to the Docker. But this video, I'm going to show you how we can do this with the layered structure. If you Google about this, if you search some articles, you can see they will ask you to get the Node.js base image and put your content and build it and deploy it and run it. So why we shouldn't do that? Because when you create a Docker, if you get the base image and if you're adding your contents and the npm packages and everything, it will be huge, right? So you need to allow Docker runtime to Docker environment to even doing the rebuild to make it easy to keep your Docker image is a minimum as much as possible. Because if you're maintaining a huge containers, when you push it, when you store in the container registries, it takes a lot of spaces as well as it takes a lot of your bandwidth to push and the pull, right? So it's not easy. So as well as your container is light, it is easy to load, it is easy to pull by your container runtime or a Kubernetes cluster, so whatever you're going to use. And also it is really easy to store and maintain, right? So the strategy we are going to use here, we are going to use a separate image as a base image, right? So this base image will carrying all your dependencies. Sometimes we call this as a golden image. It depends on how you call it. But in the ground, in the nutshell, what this has is just your packages, your npm packages, right? So now what we're going to do is we take that image and put your updated source code into that image, and we are going to build it, right? So we know when you build npm Node.js project or a NestJS project, the output will go to this folder, especially the NestJS project, it goes to this folder, right? So now what you're going to do is we have a separate other image called the production image, right? The image one is a development image or the build image. The image 2 is your production image. For the production, you don't need the entire full node image. You can use something like Alpine or some minimal image where you just need just a runtime to run your code, right? So what we're going to do is we create another production image using the minimal container, minimal base image, and then you move your build JavaScript code into this image. You don't need your TypeScript code if it's an NestJS project. You don't need your TypeScript code anymore, right? Because you know, end of the day, what happens is when you compile your project, the NestJS runtime, NestJS compiler, transcompile your project. Actually, it's a TypeScript compiler. Transcompile your project into JavaScript, right? So now you copy your JavaScript into your production image, and then you're setting some security and permission level access, and then you run this. So when you do that, end of the day, what you push into your container registry or your Kubernetes or whatever your runtime, what you do is what you push it just your image with your JavaScript code, right? You don't move your development dependencies, you don't move your entire node base image or anything. So your orchestration engine just get the minimal base image you need. When you recompile it, when you change something, when you want to recompile and create a new image, that will be super fast because it's a very layered Docker. And then so therefore it will be very fast, really fast, right? So this video I'm not going to go into technical detail about the Docker, but rather I'm going to show how we are going to do this. Here I'm going to use a base project, right? Our employee GraphQL service as usual, but I remove the database dependencies from this project, and this is just a hard-coded response from this one, right? So that is what we are going to do. As usual, I'm going to first run the project and see whether this is working fine. Right, npm run start dev. Okay, good. So let's move here. Localhost 3000 GraphQL. Right, we get GraphQL playground, and then we get the results, right? So our project is work fine, right? So now I'm going to stop the project. Now if you check this, it's not there anymore. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to create these base images first and then add the Docker files to our project, right? So since when I push this code into my GitHub, since you can follow along, I'm going to maintain all these Docker files within my project. But keep in mind, in the real world, in the real scenario, you need to maybe create about 2 projects or 3 projects, depending on how you need it. Ideally, 1 project for your base image, other project for your production image, and other project. This is the usual project, right? But usually what I do is I create 2 projects. 1 project for base image and the production image, because both are Dockers. It makes sense. And then other one for the NestJS, right? Right, so let's go and create a first Docker file. So that I'm going to name Docker file -dev, right? So this is my development Docker file, or else the Docker file what I'm going to use for build this project, right? So I'm going to mark this. This is coming from node 14, let's say 0.17.5, right? So let's see what is the version I have. Yeah, 14.17.5. So that's I'm going to use. I'm going to tell as base, right? So if you need syntax highlighting, you can use this as a Docker file. So then it will do the syntax highlighting for you. Then you can rename as your dev image, right? So then I'm going to create a work directory. So I'm not the create. I'm going to consider the usr src app as my work directory. Okay, and then I'm going to check what is my npm version here, right? So since my project is a NestJS 8 project, I need at least npm 7 version, because it is like kind of a recommended, and not if officially recommended. Even with the npm 6 you can work, but you have shared dependencies, right? So then this npm 7, it automatically can deploy download us. It is not the shared dependency, peer dependencies, I just forgot the name. Okay, right? So now of course this is npm 6, I know that. So then I'm going to install npm 7 here, right? Npm install. I'm going to globally install this. I'm going to say npm 7.20, right? So you can use X if you want, and then I'm going to run npm version command again. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this package file here, right? Package.json file here. Okay, So here mean where, because I set this user src app as my work directory, so it will copy there. So now I'm going to run npm I. So now what will happen is I just copy my package.json file. Now it will install all those dependencies here, right? So you may notice this in the NestJS, they are using different package, different npm package to delete this already created this folder. So I'm going to install that as well. Run npm I. That's also I'm going to install globally, right? And it is called RIMRAF. Okay, so now I'm going to remove my package.json file because I don't want to keep this with the image, right? Not a big deal, but sometimes it considered as a security vulnerability, you keeping the package.json within the image. Then again, even though you remove it, if someone wants you, he can go and see within your node module directory. Not a big deal, but yeah, it makes sense because when you have like package.json within your image, it's like you're giving a manifest or a key, right? Okay, that's fine. I hope my Docker file is fine. So now I'm going to do is I'm going to create the base image, right? So docker build. So I'm going to give the name as code labs base image, right? And okay, so I think it's time to rename this file as a document dev, right? So now I'm going to tell my file name is docker file dev and my context path is this. So looks like, so you can see here it tells the default version of the npm is 6.14.14, right? So now it's installing 7.20. So here what happens is it's download all the packages which is in this package.json file, right? Because this is the file we copied, right? So it install everything. So don't worry about these red color things because it's usually your warning messages. Since it is coming through this Docker installation, it's coming as a red. Don't worry about this. Those are not errors, those are just warning. It's completed. So now let's go and see Docker images. So now we can see here our code labs base image is created, right? So you can see that is 1.55 GB, right? So you can see what is the difference I'm explaining here by having a multiple Docker images, right? So now we can use this image to build our project, right? But this is not a good image to run our project because I mean it's not bad, but we don't need this much of resources to run our project, right? So I'm going to create a new Docker file for that, right? So I'm going to create a new Docker file for that, right? It is almost identical to the previous one, so I'm going to just type it. You don't have to wait then, but I will explain then how this Docker file works. I created the Docker file, so let me explain how this works. So here I'm using Node 14.7.5, same version but Alpine image. Here you can see Node 14.17.5, not Alpine image, it's a full image. So this is an Alpine image. Alpine image mean on any image, usually it's kind of a standard practice. Alpine image mean it has minimum resources to run the image, right? So we take this as a prod, and then I'm going to install my npm again. Usually here I'm going to set env variable called node env, this is an argument for production, right? So why this is important? Because node environment is a good environment variable usually in the node applications use, right? So therefore I'm going to set that as a production. In that case, within your code, if you want, you can see what is the environment. If you need to set any other environment variables, you can do this here, right? Whatever the environment variable you want to set, you can put those into here, okay? So because this is the image which is really going to run on your in the production with your code. And then as usual, we go to app and then we copy the package.json. This time we install only production, right? If you see here we just say npm install, right? But here we says install but only production. Why? because this is my production image, I don't need any of these development dependencies, right? You can see a lot of development dependencies. I don't need those on the production. So I'm going to say production, right? And then we are going to remove the package.json file. Okay. So let's build this as well, right? So you can use the same command, but here this will be let's rename this as docker file prod. Okay, so this will be docker file prod, and this is also I'm going to use as a prod. Okay, I'm going to use as a prod. That's also completed. Let's go and see now images. Now you can see we have CodeLabs base as well as CodeLabs prod, right? So there was a small typing error here, like typo with the package.json. I fixed that offline. Okay. Now we need to do is we need to use these images and create a docker file for our project, right? This is our docker. Okay, so if you check here, if you check these images, one image is this prod image is 381 megabytes, and then a development image or a base image is 1.5 GB, right? Now we are going to do is we are going to use these two and create new image for our project. For that, I'm going to use a docker file. In a real project, this is the only docker file which stay on your project, because we don't have to create your docker file or a production docker file on your project. Of course, you shouldn't. And this is just for demonstration purposes. In a real project, only thing what you need to do is move these two prod and dev docker files to different project. That's it, right? Everything is same. So this docker file I'm going to create along with you, because I have few things to explain here. Okay. First, what is the docker file we need to this one as a from file? You would say it's a production image, right? Because you need the production image to run this. But before you put it to the production, you need to compile your whatever the changes you have done, and then that is the code you need to move to the production. So therefore, the first docker image we need is CodeLabs base, right? Because this is the docker file we need to build our project. I'm going to tell here as latest. If you not tag that, it will take the latest anyway. As build, and I'm going to tag this as a build, because this is the docker image I'm going to use as a build. Here work dir, I'm going to set as usual user src app, right? So why I do this? Because that is the working directory to the app on the node image. So that's why I'm doing that. So my CodeLabs base coming from main node image. Now I'm going to run. So now first I need to move my code to this image, right? This docker. For that, I'm going to copy everything from my current local directory to my docker current directory. So what is the docker current directory? User src app, right? So this will copy everything from my current directory to my docker current directory. Now I'm going to build my project. Run npm run build. So when you do this, what's going to happen? It go to this package.json, right? Because the package.json is right there, right? I copied that, and then it's going to run this one. That means it's going to run nest build. Okay, why this is going to work? Because I copied everything here. I set the work directory to the user usr src app, and then I copy my package.json. So now this is run next to the package.json. Now once everything is done, I'm going to get my CodeLabs prod image as prod. Okay, understand what I'm doing here? I got my base image, I move my entire code to the base image, and then I build it. Now I'm going to take my production image, prod image, right? This is what it's become the layer, right? So from there onwards, this will be a new image, right? So this will forget completely, but we need to copy whatever the build output to this docker, right? So here I'm going to set work directory to again usr src app. Okay, so now I'm going to copy this folder from my previous image, the build image, to the prod image. How we can do that? I'm going to tell copy from, right, from where? Build. What is the build? Is this tag, right? The build, from the build usr src app, right, slash dist. Okay, because we got the first image as a base image as a build, and we moved to this directory and we build it here. So that means this folder, this directory should be inside this usr src app directory. So what I'm saying, hey, go to build docker, this one, and go to usr src app dist directory and take everything and copy here as a dist. Right, so now what's going to happen, it will copy entire dist directory from my build image to my current image, which is the prod image now. Right, now this is important. I'm going to tell permission set to node user and the node group recursively of usr src app dist. Right, so now usually docker, everything, this docker runs as a root user, right, because I don't want to give root privileges to my directory, this directory. Why? Because this is my entire executable things, right? If someone is managed to get into my access to my docker, some security vulnerability, I don't know, in my code, right, if some sort of security vulnerability allows someone to come into my image, still that user will have a node privileges, but the user will not have a root privileges. So this is a very important step to do. Okay, so now also I'm going to set this running user as a node, right, and finally if everything is right, run node command into dist main. Okay, so this is what we are going to do, right? So here, I hope you understand, I got the base image, I move my code and I build it, and then I got my production image, and then I set the work directory, I copy build files artifact from build docker, build image to my prod image, and then I set the permission, then I set the user, and then I'm going to tell it run. Okay, so now I'm going to build this saying docker build employee service, right? So get the file from here, the docker file from the current location. So now it will be super fast, right, because there is no downloads happen anything, because everything is already downloaded in these images. We have 3 images, right? So if you go docker images, now you will see we have 3 images. So this is very important. If you created usual docker with just using your node base image and your code, you will end up with having a 1.5 GB docker, right? But since we use this technique, we got only 381 MB as a size to the docker. This is quite important. Why? As I said, the orchestration engine you are going to use can be Kubernetes or whatever you're going to use. It's very easy to pull the new images when they want to spin up a new pods, or like you restart, or whatever you're going to do. It will be super easy, and the registry also will be, the space will be less to store this, right? So you can see from 1.5 GB we move into 381 MB. Right, so let's see how we can run this now. Okay, so docker run, I'm going to set the port 3000 to the docker 3000, and then I'm going to give the name as employee, and docker name is employee service, right? I'm not going to use the debug mode for now, or detach mode. Let's go and see now our playground. Oops, now it says get query is missing. The reason is usually Apollo server, of course Nest also, doesn't allow you to run the playground on the production. Since we use the Nest build command, now it is run on the production mode, right? So it doesn't allow us to run the playground on the production mode unless you ask to do, right? You can check this easily using any GraphQL client, right? So let's create a simple client. This is a post query and the payload is a GraphQL query, right? So I'm going to use here query get all employees and let's say first name, designation and city. Right, let's run this query. So we need to give local host 3000 GraphQL, and you will see I get the responses, right? Though this doesn't work, but it's good, right? So now we can go and customize our code and see how this works, right? So if you go to app module, we can add here playground is true, right? Playground is true. I need to mention something else also here. If you had a physical file here, let's say something like so create your schema file on the SRC somewhere as a employee service.gql, then you will get an error saying you cannot do that. The permission is, you don't have a permission, because remember we set the permission to Node. So if you have a physical file to create, you need to make sure you set your permission accordingly, but this will be good, right? So setting like this. Okay, so now let's stop our docker stop employee and docker remove employee. So now see how fast we can rebuild it, right? So now we are going to rebuild it. See, it builds super fast, right? It builds super fast. So now, and then let's run this again. Now our playground should work technically. Yeah, so now playground is working, right? So playground is working, but it's still okay. So the problem is, though playground is working, we just enable the playground, right? So it cannot do the introspection, right? So if you do this, it's working, but you can see here, hopefully you don't have a schema. Why? Because we didn't enable the introspection. So what we can do is here, you can go here and enable introspection also to true. So in that case, you will get your introspection also in the playground, right? So I think you learned everything what you need to know how to create correctly create a Docker to your NestJS or a Node.js project. So in the next video, I'm going to not the next video, but in upcoming video, one of upcoming video, I'll show you two other things, because now the problem is it is good to use the Node this version from your repository, but sometime I don't know whether Node doing this, they may push new images under the same tag, right? In that case, you may expecting something different, but you are getting something different. So we can restrict the digest to the exact current Docker what you have, right? So in that case, you won't get different Docker at later point, right? That is not much important, but it's some good practice to do, and also do some security vulnerability check on your image to make sure your image don't have any security vulnerability. Let's discuss that in the next video. Okay, till that, to make sure you subscribe and also share this video with your friends, and I'll see you soon with next video. Stay safe, take care.